Hello, and welcome to episode 19 of Pinball in the Machine. All the information for you to join the conversation is on our website, pinballinthemachine.com. That's one word, Pinball in the Machine. And here's Tom. Hi, Tom. How's it going?
It's going good, Greg. Nice to see you. And
you too.
Straight in. I like it. More time for the chat. So I got two things for you.
Right.
One is I promised you I'd go away and do my homework on,
right.
And I did, in terms of the stories that you tell, and the tone of voice. So every time I was in the car and something was, it was coming through, and I knew that it's just the ego, I changed the tone. I ridiculed it, and I respun it. Brilliant. But then I kind of realized there was another step, and that was diagnosing whether the story was coming from the ego or the higher self. Because if it was coming from the ego, then I could do the trick. But if it was coming from the higher self, actually, it just needs to be listened to.
Yeah.
And as a result, I've had to listen to some stuff this week. I've had to eat a bit of shit. But I think it's all good. And I'll come on to a bit. The second thing I wanted to say is it looks like the we're going mainstream, baby. The secret's out. I don't know if you saw the Nobel Peace Prize. Sorry, the Nobel Prize for Physics was just won by the group that proved the quantum theory that two entangled particles, when separated, behave off each other. You observe one, the wave collapses, it becomes an actual thing, and it behaves exactly as the other one said it would, even though they can be light years apart.
Yes. So everything is connected. That's what we need to know.
So first of all, obviously there's the whole kind of like collapsing the wave piece, which just keeps hitting me in the face day after day. Even the mainstream news now is kind of slapping me in the face with it. And the other one is, if these particles behave like that when apart, it's just everything is connected.
Yes.
And even the straight physicists are saying it now.
Isn't that interesting?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, before they discovered it, it existed. I think that's the thing I keep having to remind myself of.
Yeah.
Because they say, we've just discovered gravity. No, I think it was there. I think it was there. Just waiting, and you found it.
It's officially there now.
And as I said last time, the ancients had the technologies that we can't even imagine now.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's me.
Holy moly. Well, that's incredible.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is going to be a tough podcast for me.
Okay.
Because it's the big secret one, which is probably going to be a damp squib. But anyway, and also, I know my ego is dying to jump in on this and jump all over it. I've got to keep that little monster under control because it'll ruin everything. But I think coming back to where we were last time, we were talking about the stories, and how stories affect us. Well, stories are everything to me. And I was thinking about the anger story. Right? Now, there's an anger story. We didn't touch on it last week, and I just wanted to mention it. The anger story goes something like, whoever this is, they're not playing according to my rules. That's the story.
Yeah.
How dare they? The temerity. So that's what trips us into anger. But when we think about it, when I think about our internal stories, I think about when I was a kid. Back in the day, we had a television set in 1955. We were the first ones in our street. And so my friends would come over on a Saturday morning, and Westerns were the favorite. We loved Westerns. And it was black and white telly. And I realized later on that you always knew who the good guys were in the old Westerns because they always wore white hats. Okay, the bad guys, not so. In fact, there was a television program called Maverick years later with James Garner, and the trick to the move, the joke was that he wore a black hat. Okay, so when we listen to our dialogue that we tell ourselves, we're always wearing the white hat. I told him, and how dare they? And that traps us into the story Because once we're wearing the white hat, we don't learn. It's everybody else's fault.
Yeah.
They're the ones who need to sort themselves out.
It's even in mainstream IT, isn't it? The white hats are sort of ethical hackers that you employ to try and penetrate your defenses and then tell you about it. So it's not even a secret.
No, charitable bank robbers. Yes, here we go. We'll do this. and this keeps us trapped in our amnesia. And that's the point of this. We've forgotten whom we truly are. And that is where we're going today.
I'm with you. I took as a result of the practice that I've been doing, I took my white hat off. And and
now you're naked.
And realized I have a little bit of a attachment issue, that I'm going to start exploring, stuff that if we talked about 2 years ago, I wouldn't have had a clue what was going on. Everything is building to something.
Yeah. It's all about getting beyond the dissonance. When you can quiet the dissonance and pay attention to something that is totally unbelievable, but just you don't have to believe it. You just accept that it's there and look at it. And, the lessons sometimes are not easy.
No.
But they say what we fail to pay attention to becomes invisible to us. And that's the trick to the move. We're not paying attention. And so we're missing the good stuff and we're entrapped in the rubbish. Now, I'm not here to convince anybody of anything. And I got to say that going in, I tried that for years and mainly got blank looks and derision. So I kept thinking that as the lies got more outrageous, people would see through them. But the opposite is occurring. I think, as Orwell predicted, it's like kill for peace. War is glorified. Hate is love. It's just a nightmare. And Goebbels, who knew this, he said, if you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will eventually believe it. Well, he said eventually because they didn't have the internet back then.
Yeah.
What's going on now? The Nazis were amateurs, So I'm simply offering a point of view. And I'll explain, hopefully why this is important. But this is a bit of a minefield for me because I could trip and fall very badly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess that takes us to the secret thing. I've been hanging it out there long enough. I guess people want to know what it is. And I've been struggling with it since I got it a week or so ago because there were a lot of contradictions or what appeared to be contradictions. And I have to keep my ego in check on this one. So I'm not supposed to tell the secret, but I'm going to. And there's a reason for that. And this is my information. So this is a big deal to me. And what they said to me when they gave me the secret, they said, look, before you get big ideas, this is not about you. This is about everybody. Okay. And you're not here to tell it. You're here to show it. And yet here I am doing the podcast. Right. And then they told me how that all fits in. So this is my information as I got it. And if it doesn't resonate with anybody, it doesn't matter because it's not necessarily anybody else's truth. But this particular piece is why the Gnostics, the Cathars, the witches, the shaman have all been ruthlessly targeted, tortured, murdered, because they knew the secret. The indigenous peoples knew the secret. Wipe them out. And this is our get out of jail card. And the secret is one word, really. And the word is compassion.
Compassion. So we're talking here about genuine empathy with an action associated with it.
Exactly. Yeah. And they said, oh, and by the way, when I say the secret is compassion, and now one's reaction to that will show them their perspective. Okay. So if you're going, what is that that's a big deal? What is that? That shows them the perspective. If they say, oh, that's interesting, I want to know more, that's a different perspective. If they say, oh my God, that's the get out of jail card, that's yet another perspective. So it's merely a question of perspectives. And the thing is that the stories determine our belief, and our belief determines our perspective. So we're right back to the stories, okay? And we've departed from the time of thinking and believing. We're in a time of knowing. And that's why the meditation and the journeying, whatever, is so important, because you can't understand this. You must come to know it in your heart. Otherwise, it's just an idea.
Yeah.
So moving beyond the stories, here's a story. 26,000 years ago, virtually every religion predicted a great schism, okay, where souls would part. One lot would go one way, and the other lot would go the other way. And guess what? We're right there. It's underway. And so those who are trapped in the maze either alter their perspective or don't expect lube.
Yeah.
Thinking about a rat in a maze, the rat is trying to find the way that leads to the exit or the food or whatever they're going for. And they keep hitting dead ends. This one, not that one, not that one, not that one. And over time, a long time sometimes, they finally come to learn that there's the one way that leads somewhere else. Now, if you change your perspective and you look down at the maze, you see immediately where everything goes. Okay? But you have to go up the mountain. You can't do it from within the maze. You can't fix this system from within this system. It doesn't work.
It's interesting you say that. I talk about this quite a lot in my sort of a group I've got, which is a kind of a CEO MD kind of club, you know, and we talk a lot about compassion because all the surveys they've done worldwide of employees of businesses that they say their number one wish or requirement is not more pay or less hours. It's that there's compassion,
yes,
from whatever leader is there. And they can see that genuine empathy with action. I wonder whether sometimes because they want somebody looking at the maze from a different perspective.
We need to, but the thing is that we're not supposed to. Okay. And the more outrageous the lie, repeated enough times, people believe it. And so here's the thing for me. And I can only talk about what I believe is true. But to me, truth is simple and will withstand any scrutiny. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, if there's censorship and if people are being threatened, having their careers ruined, being deplatformed, being killed for going against the collective narrative, then to me, the collective narrative is one lie after another. Because if it can't be questioned, it cannot be true. And anyone who tells me, oh, that's just misinformation, is telling me that I am incapable of critical thought. Well, how dare they? Who are they to say that? Give me the facts, give me the deal, and let me make up my own mind as to what is the right path for me and true of anyone else.
Yeah.
All right. So the compassion is an interesting word for me because it comes in degrees. So you can say, well, I'm compassionate. I gave a homeless person a couple of quid the other day. Well, that doesn't get you any brownie points, really. Okay. What they're really talking about, I think, is what Ram Dass refers to. Can you be in hell and open your heart?
Yeah.
That's compassion.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the one.
Yeah. And you can't do it from a place of fear, which is why the story is so important. Because when we know, not when we think, but when we know, then we come above the maze and we see it for what it is. And we think, well, I'm not playing that. I don't need to play that. I know where I'm going now. I can go straight there. I don't need to work all that stuff out. Once we change our perspective, but we're not supposed to. This is where the big fear is. Everybody stays in fear. Everybody is being distracted by, work hard. Here's the thing. Work hard at school. What do they tell me? Can try harder, must try harder, can do better, blah, blah, blah. Before I entered school at the age of 5, actually I entered at the age of 4. But before I entered school, I learned to walk, talk, eat, dress myself, go to the toilet, and never once did I try to learn any of that stuff. Okay? I just learned it. We don't have to work hard to learn this stuff. So the distraction is work hard, get the good job, raise the kids, pay the mortgage, and die. Well, if that's all there is, I'm out because it can't be true. And this is what the midlife crisis is about. When we get to a point where we say, well, I've done all that and I'm not happy. And if you look at us as a society, which Graham Hancock calls us a civilization with amnesia, our success is based on our gross domestic product. In other words, the more we consume, the more successful we consider ourselves to be. And when I was a kid, we didn't have much rubbish. Things came in paper bags. The small paper bags were what my lunch was packed in to go to school, and the large paper bags were cut up to cover my school books. Okay? We didn't ask for plastic. We didn't ask for all the packaging. We didn't ask for us to be able to have fruit and vegetables 24 hours a day, 12 months out of the year. That was put upon us, and now we're being blamed for something that was not our doing, you see? And the more I question things, the more I start to change my perspective. So to be in hell and open your heart cannot be done out of fear. You got to do it out of love.
I like that. I like that one. I've thought about that one before from a different perspective. So I've had instances where I've come across individuals who, it turns out in hindsight, have been extremely good at faking compassion. So, which is a thing, right? Because there's a certain subset of people in this world who literally they can't actually feel empathy. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's who runs the world. Yeah.
And the really dangerous ones have effectively learnt how to fake compassion because it's a really good way of convincing people to do what they want.
You're a star. You are absolutely. You nailed it.
But then. You always know when you always find them out if you reach a point where they're in hell, and that when that happens, they show their true colors. They cannot open their heart at that point. They're physically incapable because it wasn't genuine compassion.
No. Groucho Marx said something like, if you want to be successful, honesty and integrity. If you can fake that, you got it made.
Love it.
Right. Yeah. But you've nailed it, right? Because my mom used to say, Greg, why would they do this to us? Well, you're saying this, but why would they do it? Because they have no conscience. That's what a sociopath is.
Yeah.
Never mind a psychopath and the pedophiles. That is what it is. There is no conscience. Therefore, it doesn't matter about you. So you get the platitude, we're doing this to, blah, 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 because we're very concerned. You look behind the curtain, it's the same man pulling the same levers for thousands of years.
Exactly. And it's a personality type. And guess what? It's a really, having that personality type is really effective way of getting to the top, right? Because you're able to control situations and create a narrative or create your own timeline, essentially, whereby you end up in where you wanted to be in some position of power and control.
Yeah. If anybody questions it, so if you think about, we talked about last time, I mentioned Jesus of the Christ. And the Christ is the Christ consciousness. It's divine compassion. The Christ consciousness is the divine consciousness made manifest on the earth. And if you look at the story of Jesus, Thoth, Horus, Hermes, Odin, Anubis, the stories are the same.
The same story.
Okay, so it's all stories. The question is, can you be in hell and open your heart? Can you move beyond the maze? Because when you do, the fear disappears, and then there's no control.
Yeah.
You just do the honorable thing. Now we're talking. And so the reason why we are not supposed to know this is because it is our get out of jail card. They have no power once we realize who we are because we stop playing the game.
Yeah.
Now we have to face the consequences because they control the game. But we say, okay, we're not playing the game. And then life gets real. Yeah. And I wouldn't miss it, man. This is the most amazing thing I've ever experienced. And I've been around.
Well, I'm in.
You're well in. Listen, you just nailed it, man. That is the get out of jail card. But if you're still thinking, it's just compassion, who cares? Then you're in the maze. And there's nothing wrong with being in the maze. If that's where you want to be, that's easy. You can do that. Just comply and get on with it. And as I said, don't expect lube because that's what's coming. The other thing is that as you change your perspective, and this is the hard part. Okay, so Tim Wilde talks about the dark night of the soul. Now, we've talked about that. And if you question everything, your world will fall apart in the sense of how you understand it to be. It happened to me first when I was 18 in the military, when I was ready to die. And then I realized that dying could be the good news. And then life becomes unimportant. And then your whole paradigm shifts completely. Okay. That was a real shock to my system. The older you get and the more you've invested in the dialogue, then the more you feel you have to lose. And so we hang on to what we believe is the truth. And if we start to get that wobbly, we instigate a dark night of the soul, which Tim Wilde says is like the crucifixion. If you think in terms of symbology, you'll see it through all the holy books. And then if you go through the dissonance, if you go through and go up the mountain a bit, you come to the awakening, or a version or a level of awakening, which is analogous to the resurrection.
And I think that's going back to my previous point I was telling about the homework I was doing this week. I have been questioning my own stories, every single one.
Yeah.
Is this the ego or is this the higher self? And really questioning. I've never done that before. And, and as a result, although painful, I feel like I have climbed that mountain a little bit.
Yeah. And then things are not the same after that.
I'm getting altitude sickness.
And the other thing is, not only are things not the same, but you can't go back.
No.
You think,
it's done. It's
why
done
would I
now.
do that? No, that's right.
No, I can't.
Yeah, once you know it, you cannot not know it. And then people just look at you with a blank stare like, what are you talking about? You're off your head. Well, if this is off my head, I'll take it.
I do. Although, every now and then I am tempted to it would be quite nice just to get back in that maze. But I can't.
Ooh,
I can't.
I know.
I'm done.
Well, guess what? That pretty much brings us to the end of the episode. Oh, my God. And anybody who's still there, I'd like to thank you for listening, and we really appreciate your feedback. So for me, it's good day, Tom.
Yeah. Cheers, guys. See you next week.
Yeah. For now, we're down.